repository, commit, pull request, fork, branch. What are all these terms? Maybe people are telling you these terms, maybe you heard these terms online or somewhere and you don't really know what the meaning of it. Well, this is exactly the video for you, because I'm going to explain what the meaning of every command, how you can use it, to contribute to open source projects, how people are using these commands in the real world, in production mode, in companies, in tech companies. And you might ask yourself, why should I listen to someone who talks to a SAC with a microphone? Yeah, you couldn't find a way to put it anywhere, so this is the way to do it. But I'm working at a startup and I can show you how to do it. I contributed a few times to open source projects, and I can honestly tell you that without knowing all these commands and how they are really used on the industry, I wouldn't know how to use it myself. And all these commands that I'm going to show you, I'm using it on a daily basis. These are your bread and butter if you want to be a software developer. So let's do it. So let's start from the basics. What is a Git repository? And if you know some of these things, there is timestamps in the description so you can skip. So let's start. So a Git repository is a .git folder inside the project. This repository tracks all changes made to files in your project, building a history over time, meaning if you delete the git.git, you delete your project history. So this is the boring meaning of a Git repository. And as I see that, in my opinion, a Git repository is a project that you can track changes with. So if you delete the .git folder, you can't track changes no more. And for example, if you will take a look at one of my projects here that I have, this is a project from GitHub, by the way. Here is the .git folder. By the way, it's a hidden folder, so you might not see that in your projects. You need to allow hidden folders. But basically, if I would delete that, all the history, all the changes will be deleted, but the code itself will stay here. So a repository is basically a project with all your code, all your everything that you can track changes. And the way you make a folder a repository is basically you go to the folder, this destination, and you do git init, or you go to the project itself and you git clone it. So let's take a look in my profile. What you can see, this is the project I'm talking about. If I would just take this link and I would git clone that, it would give me this. So this is a Git repository. Let's keep going. What is a commit? So let's read the boring definition and then I will make my own words about it. So a commit is record changes to the repository. By the way, all the websites here, I will link them in the description. If you want to read more about them, you can do it. So the git commit command captures a snapshot of the project's currently stage changes. Committed snapshots can be thought of as safe versions of a project, blah, blah, blah. Also, you want to know this, commits can be thought of as snapshots or milestones along the timeline of a Git project. Commits are created with the git commit command, blah, blah, blah. A commit is basically, again, this is the simplest explanation you can use, record changes to the repository. It means once you change files and you want this to be recorded in your repository, you need to commit the changes. If you are not going to commit the changes, it's not going to be recorded. And why you want to commit the changes? So if you want to go back in time,
this is it.
You can do that. If you want to back up something, you can do that. But if it's not committed, you can't do it. So for example, let's take a look in this project. I have it on my machine. It's a project I try to contribute to, or I contributed to, but I forgot to do the pull request. By the way, if you want to know what a pull request is, keep watching. So here is the project. It's basically an Android application. So here we have all the files and folders in the project. This is basically all the Android application. And if I want to make changes and to know about it, I need to commit the changes. So if, for example, I would just change the name of, I would just put here folder 1. So if, for example, I will check the status of my project, we can see that I made a change here, but it will not be committed. If we will take a look at the git log, this is the last commit of the project, which means this is the last recorded changes in the project. Right now, the change I did is not recorded. So why is it so important? So let's say, for example, I'm working on some big feature and I'm working on it and I'm deleting stuff and doing this and doing that. And let's say I want to go back to some state of a project. If I didn't record it with a commit, I can't really go back to it. So basically what you would do is to make a commit is, let's take a look again in the status. This is the change I made just for the example. If I would want to commit that, I would first of all need to stage the changes, because not every file you want to commit, and you can choose which files you want to commit. So for example, if I will take a look in here, and I will take a look in the status again, you can see that there is 2 files changed. Now let's say, for example, I want to commit only this one. What I would do is I would stage the changes of this by adding it like that. If you will take a look at the status again, we will see that now this is staged and this is not staged. And if I want to put a label on it, which is a commit, if I want to make a record on it on the Git repository, what I will basically write is I will write here test. And that's it. Now I have a change under the message test for this file. So this is how you do a basic commit. And again, commits are basically recording changes on your repository. So you can go back to that, you can back up. If you don't want a feature, you can remove it, and so on. This is your bread and butter. This is what you are going to do most of the times with your projects. You are going to add commits, you are going to push, and so on. I will show you how to push later. Let's keep going. Now, branches. What is a branch? Basically, there is the boring explanation here. A branch in Git is simply a lightweight movable pointer to one of these commits. The default branch name is Git master. As you start making commits, you are given a master branch that points to the last commit you made. Okay. Read all this article, but basically, as I see that, branches are ways to separate your project. And why do you need to separate your project? Well, let's take a look again in this project. If I will tap Git branch, we can see that I have right now 2 branches. So this is the master branch. You will have it whenever you initiate a new repository. And this is a branch I made to contribute to this project that I didn't push yet. But we will get to it later. So basically, Git is separating everything to branches. Now you get this master branch. And let's say I want to create a new feature or fix a new bug, and I want to create a new branch. Let's say I would say fix bug. Then if we will take a look at our branches, we will see that we have 3 branches. Now, and right now I'm working on the master. So if I will commit something like I showed you, if I would use git commit, it would go to the current repository, which is master. If I want to work with the branch we created right now, I will check out. And if we will do git branch, we can see that we are now working on fix bug. Now, practically, why would you want that? Let's say you have a big feature you want to add. Let's say you want to change your UI or something like this. And you don't want most of your code to be on master. Because most of the time, when you work in production, for example, when I work in my company, all the things that are on master are going to production. It means that everything that you commit to the master is going to the Play Store. Basically, what's going on is we are working on a branch that is called develop, the develop branch. I push to it all the commits, all the changes, and all that. And once we decide we want to release a version to the store, what we basically do is I create a pull request to the master, which I will talk about more later. Once the master gets the changes, we trigger a build. It builds the whole application and it uploads that to the store. This is a different thing, but most of the time in companies or in other environments, the master branch is the production branch. So you don't want to work on it because, let's say, for example, you made a mistake, you did a bug. You don't want your bugs or your mistakes to be when the user is using your application. So this is why you want to move it to different branches. Another benefit of branches is if you make changes and you want people to review your code, instead of it being on the main branch, you can separate it to a different branch, and after they check it, after they see that everything is good, you can push it to the main branch. Another way that I use branches is to make it more organized. Instead of just writing code and code and code and see that right now I have a lot of lines of codes that I don't really know what they do, I will create a branch and I will write something like fix UI bar. Then all the changes I made for the UI bar, I will do in this branch, and once I want it to be in the main branch, I will merge it. So these are what branches is. Again, I recommend you to read everything that you see here. Basically what they say here is, once I created this branch, if you will take a look at our log, you can see right now that this is our master branch. This is all the commits that are in the master branch. And once I created a different branch, it will basically make, it's not a copy, but it will give me the exact point that I started with, which is the test commit. And then if I will make a change here, this is the change we did before. If I commit the change, and I will take a look again in the version control, now you can see that we have the fix bug branch above the master. We see that the master is behind, and we kept working on the fix bug. So now the master branch is not going to be affected unless I'm going to merge it to the master. And this is, I think, the best thing to do. Work on a branch, do all the changes there, do all the QA, do all the fixes, and once it's ready, once everything is good, merge it to the main branch. You don't have to use branches, but it's a nice tool to organize things better. For example, when I started on my projects, I used only the master because I didn't really know how it is working, but if you can develop these habits of working with different branches, it would be very good for you. Pull requests let you tell others about changes you pushed to a branch in a repository on GitHub. Let's go back to this project. If I want to make changes to this project, which is on GitHub, this is the project, I need to make a pull request. A pull request is basically, as the definition said, letting people know about your changes. So again, back to this project, let's say this is an actual commit and I want to push that to the remote server. Everything we did up until now is locally. This is why I can do whatever I want, and once everything is set, I can upload it to the server. And the way you do it is by pushing your commit. So let's see how it's done. So if I would do git push origin fix bug, so now we can see that it pushed the changes to the remote server. And if I will take this link and I will go to it, we can see now that I can open a pull request. Once I will open a pull request, the owner of the project is going to see the changes I made, and he can decide whether or not he wants to approve my changes. Once he approves my changes, all the changes I did will be merged to the master. Now right now I didn't do any incredible changes. You can see here all the changes you made. And this is your way to let other people know what changes you made in the project. And this is the way that they can review your code, they can see what you did, maybe give you some feedback, and so on. Now I'm not going to create the pull request, but this is your way to make changes. So what can you do basically with pull requests? Let's say, for example, you see a project you want to contribute with open source. You just take the project, and I will talk about forks right now. You made your changes, you took it, you create a branch if you want. If you don't, you can do it without a branch. I would prefer to do it with a branch. And it really depends on the project. Maybe people will ask you to open a different branch because it's easier for them. So you need to keep that in mind. It really depends on the guidelines and how people like to use things. Once you make all your changes and you push that to the remote server, you can create the pull request. Now, if you have any questions about what is a remote server, what am I talking about pushes, comment below, because I'm trying to explain everything and I'm not sure if it's so understandable. What is a fork? A fork is a copy of a repository. Forking a repository allows you to freely experiment with changes without affecting the original project. This is a very good explanation. So let's take a look at the project I showed you up until now. If you can take a look at it, we can see that it's forked from this main project. If you will take a look at the main project, what basically I did is I was looking at this project, I was thinking, okay, I want to contribute to this project. So I pressed the fork, and now you can see that I already forked this project. So it's here. And then I have this project. Now, maybe you ask yourself, well, why do I need to fork the project? Why can't I work on the main project? And the basic answer for it is you don't have the permissions to make changes. So this is the magic of GitHub or open source. You go to a project you don't know, you don't have permissions with, and you want to contribute to this project. So what you basically do is you fork the project, you get it to your account, you clone the version from your account. This is the link. As you can see, it's on my account. Now here you make the changes, you do all the changes. Once you finished with the changes, you create a pull request. In this request, what you basically do is you tell the owner of the project, here is the changes I made. I want it to see the changes. I want you to approve that. I want you to merge that. So once you create the pull request, it will create a request for the owner. Once he approves that, your code will be on the main code. So when you will look at the commits, you will see your changes. So this is basically a fork, pretty simple, and this is your way to contribute to open source projects. Now, what else you want to know about open source and GitHub? Let's take a look at issues. So this is basically when you start working on a project and you don't know where to start, you go to the issues. Maybe they organize their way with Trello or with some other ways. The way you can find it is in the README file, most likely. Here is the contributing. You can take a look in here and you can start contribute if you can find issues in here or in the issues section or in the community. You can ask them questions. Hey, I want to contribute. How can I start? So you can go to the issues. So these are some of the things you need to know about open source. There are some other things, but this is all the basics. Once you know all that, you can contribute to open source projects. And I would say that if you really want to know all the things I've talked about in the video, you need to practice that. So don't just watch me. Go to right now to a project, go to your maybe local machine, create an existing project, push it to the GitHub, see how everything is going on, maybe find a project that you want to contribute to, pick a project that you like, start contribute to it, use the git commit, use the git branch, use the pull request, fork projects, and this is the way you are going to learn about GitHub. Now, if you want to know more about open source and things like that, subscribe to the channel. I upload videos every week about open source and all sorts of things. If you want to know step by step how to pick the right projects that you can start contribute right now, there is a video right here. And that's it.